right, hello everybody. Got another episode of Roundtable here. I am not Cody. Cody decided not to show because everyone was gonna show up, and he thought this is some fucked up shit. We gotta have somebody drop out. I know I schedule 6 every time, but that's because somebody's not gonna peace out at some moment. But yeah, he's not gonna be here. I'm gonna run it. Probably gonna fuck up this ship, but that's just how we're gonna do it. Let me just start introducing the people who came here. First over, I guess, to my left, your right, whatever. I got other longtime host here. I got Scott. Hey, Scott, why don't you tell us what movie you brought?
Hey, I'm happy to be here, and yeah, first one without Cody is a little weird, but we will hold this ship together with duct tape and glue and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so today I decided to bring the film Paris, Texas by Wim Wenders. It's kind of a indie classic a little bit. It's in the Criterion Collection, that sort of thing, and I don't. No, I don't think anyone here had seen it before, from what I recall of seeing on Letterboxd. So I thought it would be a good one because this was one that blew me away the first time that I watched it.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one. So it'll be fun to get into it. Well, we also got Brian here, bringing him back into the fun. Hey, Brian, I guess how you doing? I didn't ask Scott that, but he answered it anyway. How are you doing? And what'd you bring for us?
Well, since he answered when you didn't ask it, when you asked me, I won't answer that. So, no, I'm good. We'll miss Cody. I especially wanted to hear his reaction to my movie, which is very, very similar to Paris, Texas. So I'm surprised we picked these two movies today. I picked a movie from 2011 starring Josh Hutcherson called Detention.
It's a great double feature.
Yeah. The most low-key movie and the most high-key movie of all time.
Yeah, it's like in the order we had, man. I think that's how I watched Detention and another movie about to bring up. Here, Mr. Matt Quayler, also showing up. Been seeing a lot of you lately, honestly, in the show that people have not seen a lot of.
The show that people can't stop talking about. I think it's one of the most popular shows on the Video Store channel right now. But we're not here to talk about the great shows, The Wire, Oz, and Breaking Bad tonight. In fact, we were talking about one of the movies I brought. The movie I brought is, even though it came out in 2000, I like to consider it kind of the last gasp of the 1990s political thrillers, The Contender, which has a stacked cast, and I think it was really kind of fitting with the political landscape we're in right now. So it should be fun to talk about.
Like how you threw Oz in the middle. Got to make sure people don't forget about Oz. And lastly, I have Dylan here with me, our resident Canadian on the panel today. How you doing, sir? And what did you bring for us?
Yeah, I'm doing quite good. So when I got added to this, I was very excited, but also then I realized, like a few days after I got added, that I couldn't think of a movie to bring on. So I was like, what do I want to rewatch? And my favorite director is Jim Jarmusch. So I picked one of my favorite films by Jim Jarmusch, Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai. And yeah, I'm very excited to talk about it.
I am too. Just say that. The movie that Cody decided to bring to us today was a quiz show. I think as he always likes to say, we did our homework. So we're going to talk about that still. And the movie that I brought is honestly a movie that I always have a ton of fun talking about, and I love bringing it up just in conversation with complete strangers of a movie I really like, and that is, the Channing Tatum classic, Magic Mike. Good old Steven Soderbergh classic, Magic Mike. I have no idea. I really don't know how he does it, but you know what? Well, I'm here. We're just going to get right into it. Got to start off first movie of the panel right now of somebody who's not here. We're going to start off with quiz show. I don't know, who has seen quiz show beforehand? Just curious. Half the panel. Okay, I had not seen it. It was kind of one of those weird ones for me. Because was it Was this one of the movies that kind of came out like during like the Titanic, L.A. Confidential? Was that around like that?
No, this was
This is
94.
more
So
before.
this
This
was
is Pulp Fiction,
Shawshank.
Forrest Gump,
Yeah.
all those. Yeah.
Okay.
Shawshank.
Oh, it was in the middle of that. Okay, no wonder this movie
Yeah,
got
it was either Pulp
very
Fiction or
okay.
not Pulp Fiction. Forrest Gump beat it.
Okay, like that makes sense to me because I think honestly how I felt about it was very similar to that. Like it was a movie that I liked, and honestly, as I'm thinking about it a little bit more, I think I'm liking it a little bit more. But it's also one that I'm not really sure if I'm ever gonna revisit. It's not really that like I didn't enjoy my time with it. I thought it was kind of a nice, fun, like a mystery to it, and it feels like every time we like went further into it, we kind of learned more. Especially like by the time we get to that middle part with Totoro, like. But I don't know, like it's one of those like I can't really explain to you like certain specifics I didn't like about it, but it's also one that like I just. Yeah, I'm just not sure if I'm ever going to go back to. You know what? Let me just start. I mean, to start whoever wants to jump in and talk about this.
Well, Dylan hasn't seen it before. Let's go to him next.
You got it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This was like I said, it was my first time watch. Yeah, I found it really interesting how it's like it may not be like it's not like the most like high stakes plot. Like there's not like a murder mystery or like any like thing super like crazy like elevated like that, but they somehow manage to feel like so intense and so like it's the most high stakes thing you're watching ever when you watch it. And I thought that was like really interesting. Yeah, I love John Turturro's performance in the movie, and like him trying to deal with being like having to throw the competition at the beginning of the movie on the Marty question. I thought that was like really cool, and like him, all the different people's reaction to like it's Marty, come on, and he has to live with the embarrassment of missing that question, even though he knew it. That was interesting. Yeah, I don't have like a lot of like in depth like insightful things to say about it. Just I thought it was like really well executed, really well written, and just like a very fun watch. So yeah, it was good.
I think I kind of felt the same. I think I watched it like when it first came out. I'm not sure I've watched it ever again since then until now. Because it's one of those movies that, it is well made, and I think it's full of great performances and everything, but it is kind of one of those, you finish it and you're just kind of like, okay. And I kind of forgot about it. I think I was surprised at the time they got nominated for Best Picture, but it didn't really matter because it wasn't going to win against the ones it was up against that year. But, I thought Ralph Fiennes did a great job. He was just breaking out in this. John Turturro, I thought, did a great job kind of playing kind of usual John Turturro character. But what I really loved about this was kind of the great supporting cast. I mean, lots of character actors that, the community probably knows a lot of them, but the people on the street, aren't going to know, David Paymer and Hank Azaria necessarily, or who else is in there?
Christopher McDonald, yeah.
Yeah. Christopher McDonald, Mira Sorvino. I think William Fichtner was in there somewhere. It's got two different directors of cameos. It's got Martin Scorsese and Barry Levinson are both in there as well. So it's just kind of like this stacked supporting cast of people that I really enjoy them. I thought I did a good job of kind of making what could have been kind of boring. There's a lot of, especially like in the scenes with the actual quiz show, there's kind of a lot of tension to it. I thought it kind of created a good vibe there. My thing with the movie though was I felt like it kind of hit this climax like with the end of the quiz show part, and then it kind of like still had like another half hour to go with all the the congressional inquiries and things like that, which I wasn't quite as interested in. It wasn't a bad section, it just felt like it kind of felt like it was going on longer than it needed to. But yeah, it's one of those I watched just for the performances. I will say Rob Morrow, he's doing kind of a weird voice the whole time. I felt like he was trying a little bit too hard to create a character there. It wasn't bad, but it was just kind of a little odd. But I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I kind of feel a lot of the same way. I feel like it's one that you're going to enjoy it while you're watching it, but then kind of after you watch it, you're not really going to think about it a whole lot. I can definitely see why it's nominated for the Oscars, because the Academy loves to nominate the types of film, especially when it's talking about Hollywood and all that stuff. But yeah, the story, especially if you've seen it before, I feel like the plot and the storyline and the whole investigation aspect of it kind of gets a little bit boring or slow a little bit. But I mean, all the performances are fantastic, and like Brian said, all the supporting character actors are great to see. And I actually really enjoyed Rob Morrow this time. He was actually my favorite bit. The scenes with him and Ray Fiennes kind of going there back and forth.
I did like their relationship.
Yeah. I think those were my favorite scenes of the movie.
Scott?
Yeah, so I'm going to be the high man on the totem pole here because I absolutely love this movie. This is in my top 100 favorite movies, actually. And I watched it many years ago, actually, when I was a lot younger. And it's one that's always stuck with me. I've probably rewatched it 6 or 7 times over the years. Yeah, I think the screenplay for this movie, which is by Paul Attanasio, who's a former film critic, actually, I think it's amazing. Really, it has that like crackling to it. It honestly, this reminds me of like an Aaron Sorkin movie, like a peak Aaron Sorkin movie at times. Like the subject matter, the way that the dialogue, goes back and forth, sort of the complex, relationships that we see going on. Yeah, I think especially Rob Morrow and Ray Fiennes, like that dynamic is one of the best parts of the movie. Yeah, the whole cast is great. Paul Scofield is also great.
Froze.
A shout out yet, but I think he's really good. Did I freeze him? Am I back? Yeah. I was just saying I think Paul Scofield was also great in the movie as the elder Van Doren. I think that this movie reminds me thematically a little bit of another movie that I brought on the roundtable a long time ago, which is actually The Ice Storm, the Ang Lee movie, because it's kind of about like this loss of innocence at a particular time in American history where we're starting to like not trust the government, not trust television in this case is sort of one of the big institutions that's being put on trial quite literally here. And so I think it's a really interesting movie because of when it's set as well. And it has a really good sense of time and place. I love like the opening credits where you're listening to Mac the Knife, and I don't know, the opening credits have always like stuck with me to the movie. But I think the sense of time and place are really good in the movie. And like I said, I think it is interesting from an ideas perspective too, because this is like right before Watergate happened. This is right before Vietnam happened. So there's conversations in the movie about politics and stuff too. It's not just this story about the game show scandal. And I think it does a good job of capturing like the attitudes of Americans at this particular time in history. And yeah, of course, it's set around a trivia show, so I think all of us have a interest in that. Right off the bat there.
I love one line that Paul Scofield said. Because he has kind of a low opinion of it. He was saying, I think it was something like cheating on a quiz show is like plagiarizing a comic strip. And at least in their quiz show, they were winning money too. So
yes,
people that cheat in trivia, that's just stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There were a lot of parts of this movie that hit very close to home.
Yeah.
I was thinking, after I finished it, I was kind of thinking to myself a little bit, because that last line that kind of rings out, well, it's a TV show, it's for entertainment. Oh, we lost Scott. I was kind of thinking that to myself, like, you know what, they are kind of right. It's just a TV show, who really cares? And then, I think it was like an hour or two, like it dawned on me, like, Mark, you help run this fucking league. I like. Like one of the more important things of what we do here is its integrity. Like people seem to care about that a lot. Like I imagine in myself, like, what if like a scandal had come out where we had been secretly feeding Meltzer like the answers, and like how much people would freak out about that.
It's like when they asked me to take a dive when I played a bar. So yeah, I mean,
no pun intended.
No. Weirdly enough, I honestly kind of really like the ending. I mean, Matt had kind of said it before that we had we're talking about The Wire. So honestly, I'm all down for like a downer ending. And this thing I do appreciate about quiz shows, it does have like this kind of weird downer ending of like, okay, like the people who were responsible and perpetrated all this were nothing really happened to them, and Ray Fiennes, who was kind of the somewhat honorable whistleblower who did come forward, got kind of fucked in the whole deal. Was kind of
And
interesting.
Didn't they? It even say in like the end credits that they even got back. The people that were responsible even got back into doing television. Like, yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah,
yeah. TV takes care of its own.
yeah.
I thought this was really a missed opportunity too. Like sometimes when the biopics and stuff, they'll show like pictures of the actual people. I mean, they still have like the footage of these actual games. They could have had some of that stuff in the credits. I thought it would have been really neat, but yeah.
I wonder if they didn't have permission to use them because it reflected badly on them or something.
True.
Like that.
NBC might not have liked that.
But yeah, because they went on, obviously continuing. Basically, the networks got out of it scot free. But I thought it was one of my favorite scenes. Actually, was when Ray Fiennes' character comes and basically confesses everything and makes this noble speech, and a bunch of the congressmen are all praising him for it. And then finally, somebody's like, "Fuck you! He's still cheating." And it's kind of like, like, you're not getting out of here without any consequences. Yeah.
He just got caught.
I mean, it's really a great study too of like what fame will do to a person too, because he really started in with all the ethics and the morals and stuff. He didn't want to be involved in any cheating, this stuff. And then it's like, oh well, just give me the questions and I'll find out the answers myself. That makes it all right. And then at the point he just got lazy and he's like, okay, yeah, just give it to me, everything. And I'll do
and he loved the celebrity of it all too. Like when he waited to get out of the car because he wanted a big crowd of adoring fans. And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing that did confuse me. Is that I'm like, how in your mind do you think that makes it better if you still know the question but not the answer? Like, I didn't get that part.
Well, it felt better, Dylan. Like
I guess
he studied the answers.
He could sleep at night.
Yeah, it's like a take-home assignment.
This book is open. This quiz is open book. There you go.
Okay. Well,
that's it. We got scores, I guess?
Yeah. Again, unless anybody's got anything else before we go to scores. No. Well, even sometimes when there's a good discussion, I usually talk myself into it. But I'm gonna sit kind of where I felt like at the end. It's a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think it's a solid movie. I definitely like it. It's just probably not something I'm gonna go back to. Why don't we go to Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have any glaring flaws with the movie overall. I just don't quite seem to like love it enough to give it like a 4.5 or a 5. So I'd give it like 4 stars. I thought it was a really quite good movie.
Okay. Matt.
Yeah, like I said, I feel like when you're watching it, it's a 4-star movie. It's just one you're not really going to think about a whole lot after you're done watching. So I'll give it 4 stars.
Brian.
I actually went 3, which for me in the way I am movies is actually it's still on the positive half of things, but it's like not great, but it's good. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Resident Kirk on the panel. All right, Scott.
Oh, don't ever compare me to.
I give it 5. I mean, I'm a little bit higher, obviously, because this is one of my favorites, like I said. And I think like another thing is I love like a good procedural, and this does kind of turn into a procedural a little bit with Rob Morrow going around and trying to crack the case, and we got congressional hearings and all that stuff. And I don't know, I really enjoy stuff like that in movies. So 5 stars. I love this movie, and everyone should check it out.
Well, I don't know, Brian. You're sitting here saying like, "Nah, my 3 rating is real good." Like, if you gotta sit there and explain that, I don't know.
Well, it's not really
good.
Because it is. It's. I usually rate mine based on a lot of times basically my enjoyment of the film. And this is it's good. I don't go negative, which starting at 2.5 down is what I consider negative because it's the bottom half of things. And this one is good. It's just like nothing like blew me away, and it's not something I'm going to rewatch very often. So it's just kind of it's good.
Well, with that, I was a little afraid of this, but you are here. So, second movie we're going to talk about is Paris, Texas, which was brought in here by Scott. Scott, why don't you take this one away?
Yeah. So like I said, I watched this movie a couple of years ago. I think I was doing some sort of movie watching challenge or Criterion challenge or something. And this is one that came across my radar. Obviously, it's a very acclaimed movie. It has like a 4.4 average rating or something on Letterboxd. So, that tells you how highly regarded it was. And this is just one of those movies that just sucked me in like instantly when I started watching it. And If you don't know, it's directed by Wim Wenders, who is a German filmmaker. He's made a lot of documentaries, but he's made narrative features as well. He just made Perfect Days this past year, which is another movie that everybody should watch. But this movie is about a guy named Travis who is found in the middle of the desert after having been missing for 4 years. He is basically catatonic for the first part of the movie. He ends up being reunited with his brother and his brother's wife, and they have adopted Travis's son while Travis has been missing. And the son, whose name is Hunter, his mom has also been also abandoned him, basically. And so the first half of the movie is sort of about Travis reestablishing his relationship with the son. And then the second half of the movie is the two of them setting out to try and find what has happened to Jane, who's the mother. Harry Dean Stanton plays Travis. And yeah, this is like one of the quintessential like road movies, if you will. It has like this beautiful cinematography by Robbie Mueller of like, I mean, the colors in this movie just pop like few movies that you will ever watch. And just the way that this part of America is depicted, it has a lot of life and also just a lot of personality to it. Like, I wish a lot more movies looked like this, for starters. But it's also a really emotionally compelling story. Again, both halves of the story, I think, are amazing. But when you get to that second half, and there's a couple scenes towards the end of this movie that are up there in terms of all-time scenes in any movie for me. So I'll stop, but I want to hear what other people thought about it because I love this movie.
Yeah, who has seen this before? Nobody. Great. Yeah, I'll just go ahead and go. It feels weird because I usually, wait till everybody else talks, but I'll go. Yeah, I think I definitely liked it. I will just start with that. I definitely liked it. I also always enjoy movies that show the kind of wasteland aspect of West Texas. I'm usually very pro that. I guess I don't think a lot of people really realize that there's a giant part of Texas that is basically just desert, and the people who live out there are fucking crazy. Nails that to a T. Bravo for that. I think as far as I feel like when this movie kind of got to its parts, I was really enjoying it. And then when like we were kind of taking a step back and we're kind of taking our time a bit, I felt like it was I kind of felt like it was spinning its wheels like a bit because it felt like we were in the first half of this movie for a little long. And honestly, even though like I'm sitting here thinking I'm not 100% sure how we go through that any quicker, because it's honestly kind of important to establish, to reestablish his relationship with his son and to kind of establish what kind of went on here before and what like why it's impactful. But like it's just whenever we got to the climax and when he sees his wife again and he has that conversation and he leaves his like that tape recorded message for his sons, like that is like the real meat on this movie, and that is really good because for that last 40 minutes, like I'm hooked. Like I want to figure out what happened. I want to find out more about this story. Like I want things to kind of go back to normal and be okay. It's just I did feel like for probably to the point where they bring Travis home, and then there's like it feels like there's this 45-minute stretch that is like, man, there's kind of not a ton happening here, and we're not really establishing anything, and it's not until like we kind of start the third act, I think, when like the kind of story starts again. Although the stuff that is good, I thought was very, very good. Yeah, well, somebody else.
Well, I'm going to go next just because I find it interesting because I feel completely different than you. First of all, I went into this thinking Wim Wenders is not my kind of director, So I was like going into, am I going to like this one? I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. But I started watching it, and I actually was really enjoying it. Like you said, it looks beautiful. The cinematography, especially out there in the desert scenes, things like that, was great. I love the relationship with Walt and Travis, the two brothers. I loved, Dean Stockwell and Harry Dean Stanton. I thought they were great together. I thought the scenes with them were really fun, and I loved the relationship with his son Hunter. I thought, and when he was reestablishing the relationship with him after his home, I really liked the way that was kind of going. They kind of slowly got more comfortable with him. Like I like that scene when they're walking opposite sides of the street, walking up from school, things like that.
I love that scene. Yeah,
those were kind of the moments and scenes that I really enjoyed. But for me, once like the wife came into it, once Natasha Kinski came into it, I kind of lost I didn't care about her. It's like those scenes kind of for me were kind of dragged out, and the whole like last like half hour or so, I was kind of like, it's fine, but I really enjoyed the earlier part of the movie better. I love those relationships more. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I'm almost similar to Brian in the regards that I kind of like the middle section the best, kind of when he brings Travis home and he's kind of reconnecting with his son, shows him the home videos and stuff, and of course the school, walking back from the school. I love that stuff. I always feel like it's a cop out when I say this about movies, but I feel like I kind of respect this one more than I actually liked it. I mean, the cinematography stuff in the beginning is all beautiful, and I think all the performances are fantastic. And anytime you put Harry Dean Stanton as the lead, I think that's bravo, applause for that. It's just the sequences at the end, those scenes between him and her. I mean, those were fantastic scenes. I just thought the acting was great in there. It's just I don't know. I just was really not liking Travis at all by the time we got to that part, and that kind of put a damper on the movie for me. The part where he just pretty much he's taking the kid from like the loving family, and I feel like he's setting up the kid for failure and setting her up for failure too, potentially. I don't know. And then he just runs away again after all that. So, but yeah, like I said, I really loved the middle section. I thought the performances were great.
Yeah, I loved this movie. I thought this was fantastic. Yeah, this is my third Wim Wenders film, and I just love more than anything about his films. I love the just conversations and interactions with the characters, like when they're just sitting down and talking to each other. That's the stuff I find most interesting. And like, there's a couple scenes in this that are like I thought were like really, really moving to me. Like when we were talking earlier about like the scene where they're walking on the opposite side of the road. That I thought that was fantastic, but also then right after that, when he's going through like the scrapbook and like the pictures of all him and his wife, I thought like the conversation that he had with his son there, where his son says like, even though you weren't there, I knew you were still out there, and like I could still feel your presence even though you weren't with me. And I thought he asks Travis like, can you still feel like her that she's still out there? And I thought that was like really, that got me like emotionally. I thought that was really, really well done. And yeah, I just think all the stuff with the father and son is just like really, really cool. I thought it was a little weird. Maybe if I have any gripe, maybe that I thought it was a bit weird that the part with Walt and his wife after the son's taken with Travis on like the road trip. I found it weird that after the phone call, that's where that kind of ended, and they didn't try to like go after him at some point. It just kind of like ended there. So I guess if there's any like minor nitpick I have with that, I thought that was a bit strange. But yeah, the way it is very slow paced, obviously, but the way it all builds for that final scene with the two monologues at the end, where it's the mysteries like revealed of like what actually happened with this family, just like devastated me. I thought it was so good. But yeah. This is one that I am looking forward to rewatching because I thought it was great. So yeah.
Yeah, they're actually about to re-release this for the 40th anniversary in theaters. So I'm hoping that I get a chance to see it just because of the cinematography, obviously. And then I mean that scene there in the list in the booth, in the peep show booth, is like, I mean that's as good of a scene like ever. I think the performances, the dialogue. Sam Shepard did the dialogue. That scene, is definitely like the centerpiece of the movie, but like I do enjoy every piece of it. I mean, like Dylan pointed out, there's beautiful moments throughout the story. And I mean, I think it's really just this guy's quest to get some sort of forgiveness or some sort of redemption for his past actions. And so the two parts may seem a little bit disjointed, but they're obviously both integral parts in him trying to accomplish that by reconnecting first with his son and then reconnecting with his wife. And yeah, I mean, the resolution is not necessarily a feel good resolution, but in Travis's mind, he's doing what he probably should have done, all those years ago, and he's listening to his wife's feelings and concerns, and the experiences and perspectives that she was going through that he just kind of ignored when they were together, and he's allowing her to be a parent to Hunter in a way that he probably never allowed her to be in the first place. So I think that it doesn't necessarily lead to a tidy, again, resolution, that a happy ending, so to speak. But I think it's a realistic ending for the characters. But yeah, it's just such a beautiful movie, in my opinion. I need to watch more of Wim Wenders, because Perfect Days is probably my favorite movie of last year as well. So he's definitely somebody who's on my wavelength, and he knows how to use those silences and the slower moments, but without you ever feeling sort of boring. Like it always feels like we're moving towards something.
I mean, yeah, because that's honestly what I really, because here, like you, Brian and Matt, because that's something I really liked about the ending, is that Scott touched on it a little bit, was that throughout the whole movie, I feel like we feel pretty sympathetic to Travis, just because like he's just kind of this guy moping around, and like we feel like something really bad must happen, and
because we don't know anything about him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That too, and like we have that one moment where like he kind of snaps back at his sister-in-law, whenever she brings up the kid, and he's like, well, she stopped being a mother to him a long time ago. Like, okay, like we feel like maybe like she's at fault for some reason, and then we get to the ending and we find out, oh, like Travis here is probably the less sympathetic person, and they give it to us at this perfect moment through these these couple of interactions. Like it hits you like a ton of brick, and the fact that he just fucking leaves at the end.
Yeah,
because he doesn't feel like, not only does he doesn't feel like he's deserving of that love, and he also doesn't feel like he's a good dad in that sense.
Yeah, I think he says like he tried his best to try to fix the situation, but he realized he can't. Like what he did was like he just can't fix it in the end. So then he just drives off, and I thought that was very heartbreaking. Yeah.
Also, like it's not a traditional. This movie is not like a traditional Western, but it is kind of a Western, and I think that Travis is in a way sort of the archetypal like Western male figure. Like he's he's silent, he's stoic or whatever, and that's supposed to convey his authority and his power and all of that. And I think him choosing to move on, it's almost like this meta commentary on like we need to move past this type of person, this type of behavior, being what is the idealized masculine way to act and way to be, as so many Western movies and stuff have propagated for many years. So I think that's an interesting dimension to it as well, that he has that sort of self-awareness in the end.
I mean, anything else before we get scores?
I guess, just real quickly, I want to talk a bit more about Harry Dean Stanton's performance, because I thought he was like just unbelievable in this movie. Yeah, like this is like one of the best performances I think I've seen in a film in a while. I think he's so good, like the way he conveys like so much emotion without even really saying stuff very often. It was weird. I was kind of, for the little that I knew about this movie before I watched it, I thought he was going to be mute for the whole movie. So when he started talking about 20 minutes in, I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, I think he's like just so good in this movie.
And
yeah,
the kid also, Hunter Carson, is a very good child actor as well too. not annoying or anything like that. I thought. I mean, I think everybody, Dean Stockwell and Natasha Kinski, and
everyone's
not a whole
great,
lot of people in the movie, but everyone's great.
Yeah, it's obviously I think kind of where he got inspiration for this performance, but it reminded me a lot of his performance in Lucky. But
Okay. Haven't
kind
seen
of
it.
I thought that was very honestly. If I ever get the gumption to bring that movie up, I'll probably bring it up at some point. But that movie, for me personally, is just a very tough watch.
And I totally forgot until this moment, but this is actually my second straight month bringing a movie by him, because I did the Stray Story last month, and he's of course shows up in the last scene of the Stray Story. So I guess I'm Harry Dean Stanton killed, R.I.P.
There was something.
He was the estranged relative that was being traveled to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he was the brother.
Yeah.
There was something that felt familiar about this. I couldn't put my finger on it. And Scott just kind of laid it out there, like right there at the end.
We just needed somebody to roll up on their lawnmower at the end of this movie. We needed Travis to hop on Richard Farnsworth's lawnmower and ride away into the sunset at the end of the movie, and it would have all come full circle.
Well, now anything else for? I think we get into scores now.
I think we're good.
Okay. Hey, Dylan, why don't you give us your score?
I'm gonna go 4.5 for now. But it's very, very close to a 5-star. But yeah.
Okay. Brian.
This is another 3-star for me, which again is leaning slightly positive. But for most of the movies that I've ever judged that Scott's brought on, this is actually one of the better ones, because we usually have very differing tastes, but this one I actually enjoyed to some extent.
Okay. Matt.
I'm gonna give this one and I think it'll probably go up if I rewatch it again, but I'm gonna give it 3.5.
All right. Scott.
I promise I don't give every movie 5 stars. Of course, you know this if you watch the show. But yeah, this is 5 stars. And I wrote when I watched this the first time, I was like, I feel like I need to adjust some of my other 5-star movies that I have rated, because this is a 5-star movie, and maybe some of the other 5-star movies I rated weren't. So, but yeah,
just need to give some 6 stars.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and and I think I'm sitting at 4 stars. The parts I like, I do really, really like. It lags a little bit in the middle, but still I think the third act is great, and Harry Dean Stanton is great. So I'm right. I'm a little less so, but I am more so right there with Scott and Dylan on this one. We'll move on to the next movie on the panel, which is very, very similar to Paris, Texas. We move on to Brian's pick. Bro. What?
We have to go from Wim Wenders' film into this. I brought Detention from 2011, which is, it's a hard film to define or to summarize. It's like a high school comedy, horror, sci-fi, time travel, body swap film.
It's a music video. The director is a music video director, and you can
basically
don't forget the fly aspect too.
Yeah,
he did Torque, which I'm not going to pretend it's a great movie, but I have a ton of fun watching that movie. That's a guilty pleasure of mine. It's Fast and Furious on motorcycles. But yeah, this is a super divisive film, and I get it. This is one of those films that's love it or hate it, and I get anybody who hates this movie, because it's pretty obnoxious. Even the first time I watched this movie, I was watching it, just what the fuck is this? I was enjoying it. I was laughing at the jokes, but I was like, what the fuck is this movie? And by the end, even I was still kind of like, I think I kind of love this movie, but do I? 'Cause I don't know. It's kind of weird. And I've watched it more times since then. I understand it more, and a lot of things make more sense. But, I just kind of love the just over the top kind of tone of it, and just the throwing, so much at the wall. And I find it very funny and entertaining. It obviously, has all kinds of influences. I think I said in my Letterboxd review, it's like it wants to be an 80s John Hughes movie with 90s Kevin Williams dialogue through like a Edgar Wright 2000s filter, for as far as all the way they filmed it and the smash zooms and cuts and things like that. And you can see that throughout the movie. Like even there's the ending has basically a Breakfast Club ending to it. There's endless 90s references in this movie, mostly by Ione, which makes sense once you find out, what's going on with her character. The music is basically Hans Zimmer's True Romance score in part of it. But I don't know. I just really love this movie. I just think it's so much fun. I was surprised how much I enjoyed Josh Hutcherson's character because, he's mostly known as like the Hunger Games kid, which I thought he wasn't very good in that. And he's had a lot of like parts in like, family films, things like that before this. But like with this movie is kind of the first time I saw him with a role that I think really fit him because I think he was a ton of fun in this. I think he had the right kind of personality for it. And then since then he's gone on to do stuff that kind of embraced that. He was the douchebag antagonist and Beekeeper was good. There's a show on Hulu called Future Man. If you haven't seen that, well, tough because they took it off Hulu, but it's a hilarious fucking show. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about this movie because I'm curious to see how I only know one person here what they think of it. And even then I kind of feel the same way, which is like, I don't know why I like this, but I do. I just have a ton of fun watching it. I'm not going to pretend it's like, an award worthy movie, but I just enjoy the hell out of it. And so I'm curious to see who loves it, who hates it. And I would not discount either opinion, honestly.
Yeah, I think Matt has seen it before. Dylan, Scott, one of you, please.
Yeah, this definitely took a bit of adjusting to get to at first because I feel like right off the start it's like coming at you very hard with like this. The style is like so aggressive. It's like
obnoxiously
very maximalist. Like this felt like even somehow managed to do everything that happens in everything everywhere all at once. It's like that times 2, but in like half of the runtime is like how maximalist this felt. But yeah, so once I got adjusted to it and I got like more acclimatized to it, I guess that means the same thing. I thought it was a lot of fun, to be honest. Like, I don't know if I was like necessarily like laughing a lot throughout all of it. I was just like consistently entertained and like smiling at all the weirdness and like just like I think some of my favorite parts in it. There's like just one like throwaway like gag really where after the principal dies and he's like split in half and no one even reacts. They just like push him aside when they walk past him, and that made me laugh like a lot. It's just like literally no reaction. I thought that was funny. It's a hard film to really critique because you could very much tell that they literally did not give a shit when they're making it. They're just like, let's see if we can do this, let's throw this in the movie, this and that. So, and it worked for me. Yeah, Joseph Kahn is definitely an interesting filmmaker. I had only seen Bodied before this, was the only film I'd seen by him. And that had like a somewhat similar style, but like very toned down. So even then I was like not prepared for this at all. I did roll my eyes a bit at the Torque line because I was like, okay, that's like the most, yeah. But yeah, overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a good time.
Yeah, and I believe he financed it with his own money too. So, shocker.
What? Like a production company wouldn't give him money to do this movie? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, the first 5 minutes about took me out.
He was cursing my name.
Yeah, they killed the character, so I appreciated that after 5 minutes. But once we got into it, yeah, I kind of agree. I didn't hate it. I'm not going to say that I loved it. I think there's just way too many pop culture references in the dialogue. And I mean, I sometimes like that, but it was oversaturation. I'm not sure that Josh Hutcherson, because the dialogue is so heavily stylized, like you really need like the right actors to be able to pull it off. I don't think that he necessarily always worked for me. I think some of the other people, I think the main girl was pretty good. I think maybe some of the supporting characters as well, but I wasn't necessarily buying him reading some of these lines. But it's never boring. Like, there are some chuckles to be had. I liked the bit of the guy who is perpetually in detention because they never told him that he could leave. And then we like get the flashback and all the different musical cues and everything walking through like all the different time periods that he was sitting there in detention that whole time. I thought that was funny. that the climax it kind of like peters out a little bit. I feel like in like the last 10 minutes or so, it just kind of becomes like a standard horror like slasher, showdown there towards the end, which was a little bit disappointing. I mean, the way that they killed the guy is like kind of creative, but
I mean, they'd already saved the universe at that point, so
yeah, right, of course. But I feel like this movie reminds me. I feel like Sam Levinson borrowed a lot from this movie when he made Assassination Nation. I don't know if anyone else has seen Assassination Nation.
I haven't. I hate it.
Yeah,
it has a very similar vibe, and I don't know. I didn't hate Assassination Nation when I saw it the first time. I feel like maybe I might if I went back and watched it. Like maybe honestly feel like maybe this is doing it a little bit better. Again, I didn't love it. It's definitely too much. I definitely rolled my eyes at a lot of the dialogue, but in the end, I would lean slightly positive on it just because it's not like anything I've ever seen before, and it has positive moments in it. And yeah, I mean, it's fun enough, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the fourth or fifth time I've seen this, and I know the first time you watch it, it's definitely like you're saying to yourself, "What the fuck?" Like every 5 minutes or so, as it just makes all those sudden left and right turns and everything. But if you watch it again, I mean, you see that they set up so much of the stuff in the background and everything, and it all makes sense. It all comes together. Well, I'm not going to say it all makes sense, but it all it makes a lot more sense. But yeah,
you notice a lot more things, like you said, they set up. You're like, oh, this was referring to that.
Yeah. But I mean, anytime you get a time traveling bear getting abducted by aliens from the planet Starclaw, I mean, it's going to be a fun time.
Oh. I feel like
I don't think Mark had a fun time.
I mean, listen, I will admit I was a bit thrown when Scott brought up Assassination Nation. I'm like, oh man, what a fucking shit pile that was. Like, I like listen. I watched this movie, and I was actually able to kind of get through most of these movies on in Friday, Saturday. So sitting there after seeing it, and I don't know. I'm not sure if I really got it. And you know what? I kind of put it on before I went to bed. And I'm like, I still don't really know. And then I kind of had it on in the background while I was doing stuff. And I gotta tell you, I still don't know. I the whole movie is like drinking water out of a fucking fire hose. It's just so much. It's not that this movie has a lot of plot lines. It has every plot line. Every plot line you could possibly imagine this movie has. And it's you can't do this many plot lines. The fact that this movie is somewhat comprehensible, is kind of a miracle. But I am sitting here thinking to myself, there's stuff I like about it, and then there's stuff I don't. It's just my overall feeling. I think it's too much. It's just way too much. It's like it's force feeding me candy after Halloween. No, just stop. I'm good. I don't want any more candy. Stop giving me fucking candy. But it's weird because honestly, after finishing it, we mentioned Joseph Kahn. I loved Bodied. Bodied is one of my favorite movies to come out of that year, and I'm kind of sitting there, I was like, man, Joseph Kahn did this, and Bodied, and it's it just I don't it just feels like we're going through too many things. And the crazy thing is I think this movie does kind of have a through line theme. There is something there with teenage loneliness and kind of the isolation we feel around that time in our lives. He is going for something, and I do think
it's the wrong movie to be looking for deep themes.
But it's there. It is absolutely there.
It is along with every other theme. Yeah.
I think that one more than anything. Listen, I'm not gonna even the like teenage fly bit, I think, kind of fits in with that weird ass theme. I'm like, okay, like that's 100% purposeful.
You mean where the father put his prized possession television on the kid's hands?
Yeah,
It
but
is part-
this is
it
exactly
is
why I
part-
wanted to bring this movie on here, because, like, you know, whether people love it or whether they hate it, it's definitely something different. It's
Yeah.
unique, it's creative, and it, you know, at least makes people react in some way. I don't think anybody's going to watch this movie and just be like, eh. They're going to have a reaction to this movie, whether it be good or bad, or, you know, what the fuck. So that's kind of why I want to bring this on here, and hopefully maybe some other people who watch Round Table will check it out too, and they can decide for themselves which side they land on. But
And my
but actually,
recommendation
the
too
more I
is
watch
to
it, though, the
watch
more I
it.
enjoy it. Yeah.
I would say watch it for a second time with someone who's watching it for their first time.
Yes.
That's the best way to experience
That's
it.
good.
I think I'm most surprised that Cody did not hate this, because he claims in the
Yeah.
chat that he kind of liked it, which
I was surprised. I was
I'm
curious to see what his
like,
score
expecting him
is.
to, like, just roast me for picking this movie, but yeah.
yeah, no, I'm sorry we're not getting his takes on it, but yeah.
If I were to get into the mind of the man for a moment, I think a thing that really helped in your favor, Brian, it's only 90 minutes. That goes a long way.
I have always said, like, you have to try really, if your movie is 90 minutes or less, you have to try really hard to make me mad. Like, because most of the time I'm just going to go, well, was it great? No, but it was 90 minutes. So didn't waste my life too much.
Yeah. I mean, listen. I could ramble on for a lot longer. But I don't know how much good. I don't know if anybody else has anything else about detention they really want to bring up. Like, I really don't want to cut this conversation short because of everything.
There's not a lot of specifics I would go into. I mean, like, there's just like the little things he was talking about when they were actually in detention with the, you know, kind of the different time periods. That was fun. The time when they're kind of going to in detention, they were like watching a film within a film within a film, kind of there's an Inception thing, and then they came back at it. I enjoyed just little things like that. It's just so unique. That's all.
Hey, that was another thing. I'm like, man, what was that? Like, they're just kind of sitting there. Like, what is this? Like, what am I watching right now? Like, we're going into like some weird Breakfast Club motif. Like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, it just.
This movie is better than The Breakfast Club. I'm just going to say it.
Oh, there's a take.
Like, I don't know, like, yeah. Anybody got anything else to read?
I will say,
describe all the scenes. Yeah,
I don't like typically like rewatch movies very often, but yeah, this one is like so unique and so creative that I could definitely see myself coming back to it or wanting to come back to it, because it's like no other movie I really feel like really captures like this level of insanity and just like with this type of like tone. It's kind of like remarkable in that sense. But yeah, it's
now that you know about
interesting.
the you know, the body swap and the time travel and things like that, I think you'll catch so much more on that second viewing.
Yeah,
I don't know if you'll like it more, but you'll.
right.
I mean, I feel like I'm the case for that. Like, listen, you are right. They do set stuff up like in the middle of it, like with the bear claw, and I think there's like in the fact
photograph
that
of her, the bear, and all kinds of
the
photograph
shoe
her
in
in
the
the
trophy
bear.
cabinet.
and like, oh yeah, that's why like this girl was making 90s references. The whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah, like her so out of touch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll just go ahead and get scores. Like, I just
yeah.
Listen,
So I'll get roasted
go
for
ahead.
this on scores, because especially having given the last two movies 3 stars. I gave this movie, I have it now at 4.5 stars. Now, like I said, when I'm rating on pure enjoyment of it, and you know, I think I used to have it at 4. I bumped it up to 4.5 after a couple of viewings, because, like I said, it's a guilty pleasure. I have tons of fun watching it, and just for pure, you know, originality and creativity, I give it a point. So I give it 4.5 stars. I know it's high. I don't care.
Yeah, I'll go next. Like, listen, I don't hate this movie. I certainly don't hate this. I definitely don't like it though. Like, it just sits in this weird limbo for me. Like, I'll give it a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Like, I think I can go worse, but like, you know what? I will say I enjoyed it, but like, I mean, come on, it's too much. Dylan, go ahead.
Yeah, so I watched this sober this time. I look forward to my next watch. Yeah, I'll give it 3.5 stars. I thought this was quite good.
Scott.
Yeah, I give it 3. Again, I would recommend it because it's unique, but I don't know if it's a great movie.
Matt.
I think I've settled at 4 stars for this one now.
Yeah, before we always talk about trying to figure out the order for this show, and after watching this, I'm like, yeah, we got our 3. We 100% have our 3, and we're going in again a very similar movie for our 4. Very, very similar. Going into Matt's pick, The Contender. Why don't you tell us a bit about it, Matt?
So The Contender, like I said, it was a film that came out in the 2000, pretty much about Jeff Bridges as the president who loses his vice president during his last term, so he needs to get a new vice president. He chooses to nominate Joan Allen. And of course, she has to get through Gary Oldman and his Senate committee doing the confirmation hearings. And it kind of talks about digging into her past, her misdeeds potentially in her college years and things like that, and kind of ask questions about should we really be looking into our politicians' private lives and their past, and how much does that affect their capabilities to hold office and stuff. I think I remember I watched this when it came out and I enjoyed it. I feel like now that I've watched The West Wing a couple of times since, I feel like that kind of hurts this one a little bit. But I still think it's got a lot of great actors giving great performances. I mean, Gary Oldman chews scenery like no other. And pretty much anytime you have Sam Elliott without his mustache, it's going to be hit or miss. But I thought he was interesting as the chief of staff for Jeff Bridges' character, who I mean, I don't want to say he was doing a Bill Clinton impression, but you definitely got a little bit of that vibe with his character. I feel like it's one that maybe wants to have its cake and eat it too, because it talks too much about she pretty much doesn't want to talk about the past, and she doesn't talk about any of the allegations when they come up in the hearings. But then the movie goes out of its way to make sure that that she didn't really do any of those things. So she's really a good person. But I think
but does that make her a bad person if she had done?
Exactly. So I think it's really interesting. And then there's some other good supporting. Christian Slater's in there doing his Nicholson impression as he usually does, as the person kind of trying to play both sides in order to try to see which way is going to get him further up the ladder. So yeah, it's definitely one that I feel like doesn't really get talked about, and I don't know. There may or may not be good reason for that. So I thought it'd be interesting to re-look at it. So curious to see what you guys had to say.
I was interested to watch this because I have had this on my watch list for a while. I usually am interested in political movies. I wouldn't say whether, I mean, there are some that I really enjoy and there are some that I think are terrible. But it's always an interesting genre, I think. And I'm also a fan of Joan Allen. I've been on record, like, I don't really know what happened to her, like, in the last decade, because she hasn't really been in any movies or anything really. And she was like, in the 90s, she was her 90s run is like really strong, and she was nominated for 3 Oscars, including one for this movie. She went on and did the Bourne movies and stuff in the 2000s. So I think she's an underrated actress, and so I was interested to see what she could do in like a starring role, because she a lot of times is in more of a supporting role. I just don't think this movie holds up at all. And you mentioned The West Wing, and I love The West Wing, and I think The West Wing is a little, it does get knocked for being like, oh, it's romanticized, it's a fairy tale or whatever. But I actually think if you pay attention to The West Wing, it's not like, yes, they have principles, but they are always having to go against their principles a lot of times to get what they want. Like you do get to see the reality of the political machine a lot in The West Wing. And this movie, I feel like, just lives in a very black and white world, where some politicians are good and some politicians are bad. And, guess what? Now it's 2024, and what if we come to realize all politicians are bad in the U.S.? And I just think that this movie was like, again, looking back at it now, it looks like some sort of way to make white liberals feel good about themselves, like that. Hey, here's somebody who affirms all of your policies and beliefs, right? And they are the moral center of the movie, and they get to have this impassioned speech in the hearing where they're like, where again she's been getting knocked down, she comes in like, I want to be clear about what I believe, and like just goes on a rant for a couple of minutes, and the music is swelling, and it's like, oh, the triumphant moment of the movie. And also, I question this idea again. Now this idea of we're not going to look into politicians' private lives, right? Because what do you think that the people like Joan Allen would say today about Donald Trump, right? Would they say, oh no, let's not look into his private life, right? Like that doesn't have anything to do with him as a politician, as a president. No, of course not. Like, I think yes, the very specific instance that they are talking about in this movie of like the sexual escapade that she may or may not have gotten up to in college, yes, that probably doesn't actually have any bearing on whether or not she would be a good leader or politician. But to go so far as to say, okay, we're going to make this a general statement about like examining politicians' private lives, I think that goes a little bit too far. And again, like you think about the era this came out in, it feels like they're trying to like wash away Bill Clinton's sins as well too, probably. So I just don't think this movie holds up, because now we're all just way too cynical about politics, and the idea that a politician would, number one, would have principles is ludicrous, and number two, even if they had principles, that they would actually stick to them in a time of any sort of turmoil or struggle is also not believable. So yeah, it happens to movies sometimes. I probably would have liked it 15 years ago, but we're not there.
I thought it held up for me. I've always kind of liked this movie. I feel like, I know we talked a lot about West Wing already, but I feel like this and The American President, which is also actually Aaron Sorkin written, I thought those are kind of the template, like the blueprints. They kind of like what West Wing became, and because they have the very same kind of tone to it, where it's like this idealized, the office of the president, kind of. That's definitely a thing of the past these days. Now things are so divided. But I just think that and the nobility of trying to help the American people and do everything, and I think that's what a movie can be. It doesn't have to be necessarily portrayal of reality, so much as like this is the ideal of what we should strive for. And I think it's more timely now than ever before, because I mean, especially they're talking about how we'll eventually maybe we'll have a woman serve in the highest level of the executive, and now this year there's a chance for that. Don't know if it'll happen, but it's kind of back in the minds of people, and even the closing dedication, whatever it says, for our daughters. I really like that one, because it kind of like tells them you can do something, which is kind of to Scott's point about would they looking at Donald Trump and that. I think they would, but it kind of shown that this movie kind of goes into the whole fact that it's like a double standard. Like with a man, would they be as critical of like his sexual exploits in college? They probably wouldn't. They'd be like, oh, he's a college kid. What do you expect? But with her, it's like this, scarlet A on her chest for what she did back in college. But yeah, I enjoy this. I love the cast. Joan Allen, who actually is from like a half hour from me. She's like kind of a local girl, so I've always liked her and everything she's done. I think Jeff Bridges makes a great president. I'm surprised he didn't play the president in more movies. I did think that they went a little over the top with the whole, the ordering food thing. It's like, I know they want to add some kind of comedy through line to call back to, but it's like, okay, we're going a little bit too much into this. But yeah, no, this stood up for me. I still enjoyed this very much. I will say it really throws me to see Sam Elliott without a mustache. It's always very distracting. But
Yes.
other than that, though, I liked it.
I mean, Sam Elliott was without mustache, and We Were Soldiers, and he was awesome in that movie, and he's awesome in this movie too. I freaking love Sam Elliott. He really is the best.
Oh, it's still awesome. Yeah, it's just distracting.
He looks like Henry Cavill and Joss Whedon's Justice League, but without CGI. That's what his upper lip looked like.
He doesn't have the crimson chin ring like he's going. Fairly odd person, but good. Okay. I think I lean more with Scott here. It's just, I think the story is interesting. I think the way they go about the story is pretty interesting, and even though I think they feel like they kind of hit us with the like kind of the twist that what CSI guy, he actually perpetrated a thing, and of course he did. Like, we didn't start with like William Peterson fishing in a boat trying to save somebody for that to not come back. Like, I mean, come on.
It's pretty obvious, like, from early on. I think when you first see the wife, right, like the way that she's like reacting to everything, like I immediately was like, they probably set this up. Like,
I thought that was kind of obvious fairly early on, or at least I won't say obvious. I'll say I definitely suspected that early on, but I did love the way that, as they got towards the end, where he convinced
Gary Oldman,
Shelley, to like, I need you to really tie yourself to this guy and tell him that he has your support and you believe everything he says, just so he could bring them both down at once. I liked that.
I mean, it was funny. Like, when he had the conversation with his wife, he's like, "Whoa, what are you gonna do about it?" He's like, "Fuck, I already tried doing something about it. We saw an answer." I don't like. Listen, I think the story is fine. I do like the story, at least how it goes down. I just cannot stand the self-importance that this movie props up. Like, it kills me at times, and it just makes it so hard to watch. And it's like, okay, this is kind of a mid 2000s version of this, and I could see how, like, the reason for this movie was for like came after like a very politicized moment for America, after the Clinton Monica Lewinsky scandal. Like, I like, that's very clear. It's just that, like, okay, I mean, this being an idealized version of anything, but like none of this, like, none of it feels real. And it definitely feels like, this is just kind of the dream like we all have. Like, I mean, especially how this movie ends. Like, it ends with Jeff Bridges giving like Congress a talking to, and he has that moment yelling at Gary Oldman, like, "Don't you walk away from me, Shelley. You're the like, come on, guys."
Everybody stands to their feet.
Yeah, including the guys that were on the fucking trial. I'm like, you guys were a part of this. What are you standing up and clapping about? Like, I don't like. There are so many moments of this movie that made me want to fucking vomit. Like, it's just, God, this is.
I mean, I get what you're saying, because I felt the same way in a lot of times when I'm watching movies about like journalism, where they hold up journalism as like, this is the noble profession, and when we're gonna, keep everybody honest, and it's just when most journalism is really got its own agenda. So it's kind of like, whenever I see a movie that, especially, they tend to be older movies, but even in the modern era, when it's something like that, where it's just like, this idealized version, I get how sometimes it takes you out of a movie.
Yeah. And I mean, I also, like, I just want to mention this one. Like, Scott mentioned Joan Allen. Like, I also never really, like, I mean, I don't want to say like I understand why she hasn't been anything else. I never really felt like she was a fantastic actress. I think she's fine in this. Like, I never really kind of saw like the way of the Gravitas, that she was a nice addition to the Bourne movies, and kind of liked when she popped up in Room. But it's like, she's an actress that exists. Dylan, I know you got a lot of opinions. You're an American, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that a part of this, like, I can't like really go super in depth on like the political elements of it, just because I'm not American. So there's that. So there's probably some stuff that I didn't connect to as much as a Canadian. But yeah, overall, I was interested by this just because for that reason, also just because I don't know anything about the process of like confirmation. So like when I was like, okay, this will be an interesting watch. But ultimately, I was a little. I'm not quite as. I don't think I dislike it as much as Scott, but I feel kind of similarly. This kind of reminded me of like the newer Aaron Sorkin movies to some extent, where it just felt like we were saying, like it just felt like there were certain moments that felt like very, very Hollywoodized and made for like an applause, like for the crowd to stand up and applaud, like with the ending where he's screaming and like giving there's like the big musical swell and stuff. Also, there's like the gotcha. Sorry.
It felt like that applause was being held in for the entire movie, because there are all these moments where it's like you're waiting for applause to break out, and then finally at the end of the movie we can release.
Yeah, so there's that. There's also the gotcha moment where they catch the guy and who set up like the woman driving off the bridge. Where I was like, again, that was kind of me just being like, man, I wish they would have like toned this down just a bit in the movie. It felt a little corny, but also I felt like I understood what they were going for, where it's like there was a purpose for it, or at the end where she says like, yeah, I could have easily disproved like these allegations, but I didn't want to do it in the first place, because to even address it when it's no one's business is like, to validate it being even brought up in the first place. I get that. I also don't know if it really makes for that exciting of a narrative, really, when most of the movies just address the allegations. No, I won't. None of your business. Address the allegations. No. Okay, now you're vice president. I'm like, all right.
You forgot the yada 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 part.
Yeah.
One thing I did like actually is that the very first time you see her in the movie is like she's having sex with her husband, because I was like, that almost like paints a picture of her in your mind from the very beginning, and they want you to be like, oh well, she did it, right? Like she she did what they are saying that she did, and I thought that was like a kind of a subtle way to like mess with the audience's mind a little bit. But
you mean the husband she stole from her friend?
Yeah, right. Well, that's just so thrown in too. At the end, it's like, no, we're focused on this sex scandal the whole time, and then it's like, oh no, by the way, there's like 2 scenes that are about the fact that she was having a relationship with her husband when he was still with somebody else. So,
well, don't forget the 10-minute segment about abortion and stuff too.
Yeah, true. Yeah. But to respond to something Brian said, because he brought up like that it's sort of about the double standard between men and women, and it is like the problem is it just like muddies the waters by going just beyond that. Like if it just wanted to be about like, oh yes, a man would not be demonized for doing the things that she is accused of doing, right? Then that would be okay. I mean, that is true. That is a fact. But the fact that it tries to turn into this whole bigger statement about like, we're not going to look into politicians' private lives, like it's tying in the Clintons, and it's almost like, Clinton was accused of sexual misconduct. She is accused of sexual misconduct, sort of. And it's like they're trying to say that, she's being treated differently than he was. But I mean, I was young. I was very young when the Clinton stuff happened, but like, I don't feel like everybody was just like, oh, that's okay, right? Like that he did that. Like, he's just a good old boy, right? And that's just what men do or whatever. Like, I feel like from what I understand about that time in history, like he caught a lot of flack and a lot of criticism, and I mean, he was impeached, right?
Well, I think the difference there is that he did it while he was the president in the position of power, versus her just doing it in college,
Which again, kind of like, I don't know, it all muddies the waters a little bit. So I think it tries to do a little bit too much. I mean, I still obviously think there is a double standard, like when it comes to men and women and how they are. I mean, like, if you take a man and put him in those shoes of Joan Allen, like people would be slapping him on the back, being like, "Hey, good job, man! Like, yeah, you're doing college the right way, man." So I mean, I fully buy into that, but the problem is the movie goes further than that.
And I think it's funny that Brian brought up the thing about the journalist, because the writer-director of this, Rod Laurie, he also did one called Nothing But the Truth, about a journalist who was sent to prison for refusing to give up her source. And it's very similar.
Really weird movie. There's a twist at the end of that movie. That is one of the craziest twists that you will see in a movie like that. Just go into it cold and you'll be like, what?
I will say one twist that I liked. It's a small thing, is like, because like I said at the beginning, you kind of felt like this was staged, but then when you find out like it was staged, but he was supposed to actually save her, and things fucked up, and she actually died. I thought that was kind of an interesting twist on it. You know, it's like things didn't quite go as we planned. So clusterfuck.
Which I gotta say, is that woman who died in the car? Is she like the dumbest movie character ever? I mean, like,
if you're gonna do that, roll down the window before you.
I mean, roll down the window, bring some stuff with you. I don't know, like, hey, why do you have a hammer in the passenger seat? Why does it fucking matter to you? Like, what was she thinking? And
The
also,
reporter's
like,
not diving in. She could actually get out of the car and then just come back up with him. And
or he could have had like a nice rock in his pocket.
I'm not saying like but there are very few politicians. If I were to do this, there are very few politicians that I would trust to pull me out of a fucking car at the bottom of a lake. Like, and I'm just saying, William Peterson's probably not one of those guys. Okay, like, the more I thought about that, the more that fucking bugged me. Like, why did she agree to do this? I don't know how much money he paid her to. It had to equal to, I don't know, a fuck ton. Like if she got paid 10 grand for this, like, she's a fucking idiot. God. Bug the hell out of me. Okay. Anything else before we get to ratings?
No.
Alrighty. Able to do that. Let's go to Brian.
I give this one 4 stars.
All right. Dylan, why don't you go ahead? I'll think about this a bit.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3 stars. I didn't necessarily dislike my time watching it. I found it a little dull at parts, like I said, and yeah, just overall it didn't fully come together for me in the end. But yeah, not crazy about it.
Yeah, honestly, I think the more I think about it, the more I think I'm sitting at 2 stars. I just really don't enjoy this movie that much. Sorry. Let's go to Scott.
I was sitting here trying to remember I remember there was a crazy Sam Elliott line, and it's when he's asking them to find something on Gary Oldman. He's like, "Give me something sexual, like little boys, midgets, like."
A cow.
I was like, what is going on? Yeah, cow. I'm not for that. Yeah, 2 stars. I really wanted to look this more because of the components to it, but it doesn't hold up. Like I said, it didn't age well.
All right. I believe you said 2 stars from that. Yeah. I think he also got angry.
Sorry, if I cut out at 2 stars.
Sam Elliott also got angry when the guy brought him tax stuff. Like, taxes? You're gonna bring me taxes? Matt, what you got?
Yeah, this is one that if I had revisited it more recently, I probably wouldn't have brought it. I probably would have used my pick on something else. But I'm gonna give it. I'll be nice. I'll give it 3.5.
Alrighty then. Okay, then move right along to movie number 5. Bringing in Dylan's movie, Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai. A Jim Jarmusch joint. Hey,
Yes.
JJJ, what you got for us, Dylan?
So I picked this movie because I think this is like one of Jim Jarmusch's more peculiar movies. I think he's very honest and frank about when he talks about his movies. I think he literally said, I don't really know what to make this movie I made. It just kind of is what it is. And yeah, it's like this weird combination of like Japanese cinema, crime movies, samurai movies, and like hip hop, and like it all comes together in this like I think really interesting way. I just love like the world that this movie builds with like all the different characters. Like there's Ghost Dog, who's like just this very stoic, like cool hitman who lives by the way of the samurai. Like he's constantly reading like the Hagakure, I think is how you say it, and living by like that code. He's got a friend, Raymond, who's played by Isaac Debancoli, who's like an ice cream man who doesn't speak English. And I find their interactions to be pretty funny. So I like that stuff. And yeah, just like all the weird side characters that you meet, like the Sonny Valerio, who's like he's like one of the mob bosses. And he's like also a big fan of Public Enemy, and he's talking about how much he loves hip hop music, and that's pretty fun. Yeah, there's so many like just really like cool scenes. Like I don't know, I feel like a 12-year-old describing this movie just because I think this is just really cool. There's a scene where he shoots a guy through like the drain of like his bathroom sink, which is really sweet. It's like if you've seen the movie Branded to Kill, it's basically like a direct homage to that. Great film, by the way. Yeah, and the score is done by RZA. I mean, come on, this is the best movie ever made.
Who has seen this movie? We ain't gone back to this one. You see, okay, Matt. Yep. Scott or Brian? One of you guys go. Kind of curious what you got.
You can go, Brian.
This is a movie I always meant to see because I remember I think I was working in a video store when it came out, and it's just somehow never got around to it. And I will say that in the years since then, probably the Jim Jarmusch of it all kind of scared me away from it because he's not my kind of director. Clearly, I don't. The films I've seen of his, haven't disliked. They're just not for me. But I've heard good things about it. I like Forrest Whitaker a lot. It's one I always meant to see and never did. So I actually like that it got picked for this week so I could check it out. It was hit and miss for me. I like, there are things I like about it. I think Forrest Whitaker is good in it. I liked a lot of the small moments with with him and Perline when they're going out and talking about the books, the things like that are the ones I liked. When they tried to do like the assassination scenes, it almost had kind of a feel like some of the scenes in The Professional, kind of same kind of tone to it. But the problem is I was always taken out of all those scenes because the mafia mob guys in this movie are maybe the worst actors I've seen in a film this year. I mean, especially like when one of them had to have a heart attack, or the
racist old guy having a heart attack was amazing. Yeah.
Or when people get shot, they're just like the worst death actors I've seen. It's just it's almost comedic, but like the movie doesn't have enough of a tone that you can think it's supposed to be comedic. It's just like that's just bad acting. And then like there's the scene where they're sitting around talking about actors or talking about rappers, and later on you see them rapping. That was all a little bit cringy for me. So I didn't really like that whole aspect of it. But I mean, there were things I liked about it. It's for everything I liked, there's like something I didn't like about this. Trying to think. Oh, what else? Oh, and then like the samurai passages that kept coming up. Every I don't know 10 minutes or so. I just felt like those just felt so forced and shoehorned in, and really didn't seem to have anything to do with anything, in my opinion. Just were unnecessary. But so yeah, it was hit and miss for me.
I'll take hit and miss.
Yeah. So I weirdly think that both Ghost Dog and Magic Mike, which we're going to talk about in a second, have like the same thing, which is holding them back from being great, which is you have the movie. The movie is just vibes, right? In this case, the movie is just him riding around, listening to RZA. He goes to the park every now and then. He talks to the ice cream guy, talks to the little girl. He reads from the samurai book. He occasionally shoots people. But it can't just be that. Like, instead they have to introduce this whole plot with like the mafia guys and all. I mean, I found some of them funny, like the guy gets shot in the same spot twice or whatever. Like, that's really funny. But like, I just think like the movie would have done better if it was just vibes, right? Like if it didn't try to complicate things with. And it's not like some super dense plot or anything. Don't get me wrong. Like it is, it's Jim Jarmusch. Like, you wouldn't expect
it's a pretty atypical like crime movie plot.
Yeah. But I mean, there is still this like, he sort of owes a debt to this guy, and there's like competing mafia people, and I had trouble keeping track of who was who, like in terms of the mafia guys as well. I thought that was a little hard to discern at times. And I don't know, like the movie tried to have a little, I like the movie. I definitely recommend it. Like I did enjoy it for the most part, but I think it could have been like, it could have rated even higher to me if it honestly didn't even have this whole mafia element to it. Just show us this guy, because he's such an interesting guy, right? And I think Forrest Whitaker was perfectly cast in the role. like just show us this guy going about his daily life, right? And also part of that is, that he kills people. But introducing the whole like, revenge element and loyalty to this guy who saved him once before. I don't know. It got a little bit too bogged down, I felt like. But otherwise, I mean, I did enjoy it. I still need to watch more Jim Jarmusch movies because he is up my alley. I've liked the ones that I've seen. And I thought this was a cool take on like him doing a genre film, if you will. I don't really think he has other movies that are like that. So
Dead Man would be the other one, but yeah.
yeah.
I meant to say this before. From Detention, thing I liked about Detention, they had that kind of cameo from Daniel Negreanu, poker player. Did find that kind of funny. And kind of similar here with Ghost Dog. Got a bit part as kind of just like a street gangster of a Jamie Hector when Marlo Stanfield just kind of in there. Enjoyed that as well. I haven't seen a ton of Jarmusch. I've just kind of seen like a solid handful, and the stuff I've seen haven't particularly liked. He's very much a guy that doesn't really like an open-ended plot. Just kind of there's like a kind of thing. We just kind of go and we kind of meander around like kind of a couple characters in a story, and it's usually just not like I don't mind open-ended stuff, but like I think if you're going to be open-ended, probably can't be plotless as well, and I think that's kind of what a couple of Jarmusch movies are, and that's not necessarily. I don't think Ghost Dog is necessarily different from that, but for whatever reason, I liked Ghost Dog a lot more than the rest of the stuff. Like I was sitting here kind of with this movie, and like I mean, Dylan made a comment I think in the last time he was on. It's like, man, like Mark just never likes my movies. Like, you know what? Like, you know what? Like, I don't know what it is, but you know what? He happened to get me with Ghost Dog, and and I had a feeling this could happen. Like even I took a chance a little bit before I saw it because I was in a town where there was a Criterion sale. I bought the Criterion here, a Ghost Dog.
Nice.
Very, very, very happy I did that. Yeah, this movie just fucking rocks. I liked it a lot. Forrest Whitaker is very good in it. Like every time he talks, it just feels neat, and like the score from RZA is really cool. Like I mean, like, and I don't think Brian is 100% off. Like those kind of samurai messages, like some of them like are just kind of there. A couple of them are I think fit really well, especially the one that we have like right before he goes into the mansion into that huge killing spree. Like that one fits really well. And honestly, like every side character in this movie, it just is so neat. I love the mafia daughter that he keeps running into, but he just doesn't kill, and find out that she's the one who ends up, running the family at the end of the guy that just happened to save him one time, and he has allegiance to. He just keeps shooting him in the same spot. That's freaking cool. I mean, we mentioned like the old loud like racist guy. Like at the beginning, he just cracks me up. Like passenger pigeons haven't been in since the 30s.
Since 1914.
I love when he has his heart attack and Ghost Dog just lowers the other gun.
he just the look he has on his face is just like, all right.
Yeah, there's just so many neat, and also too like the ice cream truck guy, like how he speaks a different language, but they just seem to understand each other. There's just so many like neat little elements of this movie that I think just play in so well, and it's so fun. And even something that I feel like kind of felt like an offline of something for whatever reason, this mafia guy would say, "Oh yeah, I really like Run DMC," and like whenever Ghost Dog goes to kill him, he's just listening to Run DMC like while he's getting ready for bed. It's just that like there's so many like neat things in here that just kind of get me. Yeah. Nah, Dylan, like you really hit it with this one for me. I really like Ghost Dog.
Nice.
I don't know if I need to see him powder his ass crack though. Just saying.
Great element. I don't know what you're talking about, Brian. It really cemented that scene.
No, I mean, I love this movie. This is one that I've revisited a lot in the past and stuff. And I think, of course, Forrest Whitaker's fantastic. I think it's a hysterical film. I mean, I love the mafia group in it. It's pretty much, it's showing the both sides. They have their code and they're kind of stuck in the past living this code, because you got these mafia guys that I don't think that they're running a business anymore or making any money, because you saw that pretty much the houses are all for sale and they can't afford the rent of the place that they're hanging out. When the landlord comes and says, "You guys owe me like 3 months of rent," and he just looks around and none of the mafia people just kind of look him in the face. I thought that was great. And they got the two old mobster guys, or the guys they send out to go shoot the guy on the roof, and they're just going from roof to roof shooting anyone's got pigeons. I mean, I love this, and I like we said, I love the relationship between Ghost Dog and the Ice Cream Man. Like, even though they don't speak the same language, they pretty much understand each other, and they have a good relationship. I love the boat. This is the scene where they go and to show him the guy who's building the boat on the roof of the build. Oh yes, it's a great movie.
Yeah. Also, second Robbie Mueller shot film that we're talking about today.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's worked with. I mainly knew him before I watched Paris, Texas, for his collaborations with Jim Jarmusch.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I wanted to highlight him because I think he's like. Well, it's weird to say a cinematographer is underrated, because they kind of all are, but I feel like Robbie Mueller doesn't get like enough
Except for
credit
Roger
because he's.
Deakins.
Yeah, right. I feel like. Yeah, like also his cinematography in Dead Man is like fantastic. I think that's one of the best shot movies I've seen ever. And yeah, like I think his cinematography, it might not be as flashy in this movie, but I think it works. It still works really well for the movie overall. And yeah.
Yeah, I was kind of sitting here thinking to myself, like, like Robbie Mueller, he did the cinematography or Detention or something. I don't know. Yeah. I even kind of really like the ending of this movie. I think the end, like, especially like, kind of every element that kind of goes up to that. Like, the guy with the gun. It's like, shit. Like, he sets it up so well to like where he knows he's gonna die. Like, very kind of like old samurai level, and like kind of sets it up for like the rest of those guys to not take any retribution on like kind of the main mafia guy. Like a. I was really like it. I may put it on the rotation here pretty soon. Like, really good pick, Dylan. Anybody got anything else? No. Okay, then. I guess we'll go scores. I gotcha, Matt.
I think I might give it a 4.5.
4.5. All right, Brian.
3 for me.
3. All right. I think I'm sitting at a 4. I really enjoyed it. I cannot imagine another Jim Jarmusch that'd be higher than this one, but I'm very, very happy with this one. Scott.
Have you seen Patterson, Mark?
Nope.
You probably.
I don't know if you'd like Patterson. You might
not as fun.
3.5 stars. I liked it. Just a couple things, making it fall short a little bit less mafia guys probably would have helped it out, but it's a good movie.
Dylan.
I mean, if I was being objective, it'd probably be like a 4.5, but I just kind of love this movie. Like, this is just a personal favorite of mine, so it's the 5 stars. I love it.
All right. Perfect. All right. Well, gonna go into the last film of the evening, going into my pick, good old Magic Mike. Just the exact movie that I think people think about whenever they think, me, like Magic Mike, a movie that, Mark loves. It took a while for me to actually like kind of get to this movie. I think because of course I was not a theater watch for this particular movie. It was around the time when I was getting into movies, and it was like I definitely looked at it as like like the Channing Tatum stripper movie. Like why the hell would I go see that? And it was one of those movies I just kind of saw on HBO, like intermittently. And I think, I don't know, like you guys like who had cable, and like you just kind of find a movie on cable and you just kind of see more of it than you ever would have like anywhere else, and you're just like, oh, yeah, this is actually kind of good. I actually kind of like this, and it's been one of those that is kind of glommed onto me like the more and more I watch it, because now I'm at the point where I just love Magic Mike. It's maybe my favorite Soderbergh movie. Like I like it so much. And I just think like there's a lot of moments in this that are just so cool. Like it's just a movie that I just feel like oozes cool, and I love every personality that's in this. I think everybody, even like the lower end people, I feel like they all kind of play their perfect part. Like I love you. We have a guy like Kevin Nash's character Tarzan. Like he's just kind of the old grizzled stripper who doesn't give a fuck about the dancing. He's like in the background, like doing like half-assed routines. Like, I think my
Doing
favorite
jumping
was
jack without leaving the ground. Yeah.
doing the wicked hands, like not moving his feet, just perfect. Like a really good resurgence performance from McConaughey. I really wish I was here last time for Lincoln Lawyer. I think this kind of is a nice companion piece to like his to Lincoln Lawyer, and even stupid fucking Alex Pettyfer. Like Soderbergh perfectly using this kid's insufferable presence to just the right degree. Like we need a guy that just you can look at him and you say, no, this guy's a fucking douchebag, and this guy he'll work perfectly like in this kind of like nobody's
Ryan Reynolds was right there.
But yeah, and honestly too, like it's just one of my favorite movies just to bring up to just random people of like, yeah, I really like this movie, and then giving me like the side eye of like, why do you really like Magic Mike? It's like it's really great icebreaker. Curious, I mean, I'm like I think most of you seen Magic Mike before, or
Yeah.
first time watch? Anybody? No? Okay.
First time for me.
Alright. Okay. Well, how? Like, let's go to you, Matt. What you got?
Oh yeah, I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed this. I really liked a lot of the sequences, just all the guys just like hanging out and having a good time. I was really kind of some of the stuff I could have done without, like the whole the kid with like the drugs and all that stuff, and I thought that kind of was like I just want to have a fun time hanging out with all these guys and kind of seeing this aspect of their lives. It's like I don't need you to throw all this extra drama in there, and I mean he's not really a great actor anyway, so I don't think he can really pull all that off. I do love all the seeing Kevin Nash just kind of shuffling around in the background so he doesn't blow out his quads and stuff. But yeah, I really dug this. I liked the relationship with Channing Tatum and the kid's sister. I thought that worked out pretty well. But yeah, overall, I will say that I like I said, the ending I thought was kind of like I feel like I wanted a little bit more out of the ending. I thought him just kind of like leaving, which was good for him, but I kind of really wanted another him just kind of like telling off McConaughey a little bit. I know they had like the one little sequence of that, but I don't think like that was really, I don't feel like that climaxed enough for me for there. But I really enjoyed it. I ended up watching the second one today, and I like the second one a lot better, in my opinion. I like that. Yeah.
I was about to bring that up. Like, man, if you like the male camaraderie,
they're just all hanging out, having a good time. That's my bag right there.
Okay. Anybody else? Dylan, Brian?
Yeah, so I'll go next because this was also a first time watch for me. I haven't seen any of the movies in the franchise, and yeah, I liked it quite a bit. I feel like if from how everyone's describing the sequels, or at least the sequel, the XXL, I think I'm gonna like that one a lot more because yeah, I agree with Scott and Matt's sentiment where I think that those were the most fun parts where it was just them hanging out and just having a good time dancing. That was cool. Channing Tatum really can dance, so good for him. Yeah, that was entertaining. Also. Yeah, it was a weird reminder that Alex Pettyfer was a thing and that they were really trying to push him in like 2011, 2012 around this time. as like the leading man. He's like fine in this. Like I think he's like my least favorite character. I think he's kind of uninteresting. But yeah, overall, I found the movie to be a lot of fun. Also, I think I will say one negative thing I had: the color grading in this movie. Like this movie, like looks pretty ugly in scenes. Like when they're outside, I'm like, is this like supposed to be set in the apocalypse? Like, why is it so yellow and smoggy outside? Like, it looked like a really bad.
Thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It looked like It was like distractingly like very yellow and brown and just ugly looking in this movie, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. There's even when they're supposed to be at the beach and it's supposed to be like a bright, sunny, fun time, and it just looked miserable. I was like, so that kind of took me out of it. But yeah, overall, I had a good time. I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the series.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of going to piggyback on everyone else's thoughts here. Yeah, it is a very fun movie. Like, it really is, but it could have been what the second one was, because the second one to me is incredible. But it's still a lot of fun. Just didn't need like that, the drug deal gone wrong plot element. And it's Soderbergh, right? Like, he like you said, the movie oozes cool. Like he is, no one is better at doing that than him. If you look at the movies that he's made, so I don't know. It's a strange choice to me that he chose to introduce that element into it, because the first hour or so before any of that stuff happens, it's like he's so clearly in his element. Soderbergh is. And just the vibes are just immaculate. And Channing Tatum is fantastic. Real movie star stuff. I think anyone who thinks that he can't act or he's just a pretty face or whatever should watch this movie, and the second one, of course, because he's very good. I still haven't seen the third one, actually.
You don't gotta.
Yeah, that's kind of what I hear. But
not great.
Anyway, it's definitely a really fun movie. People should watch it. Yeah, don't dismiss it as like the male stripper movie. There's really not even that much stripping in it, like compared to like the rest of the movie. And actually, the stuff that is in there, and again, the stuff that is in the second one, the dancing that's in the second one, like is kind of electric to watch, honestly. Like the choreography and everything is so well done. Like, it's not cheesy or anything like you might think when you see the trailer. So it's a really fun movie, but it was so close to being amazing.
Yeah, so I have seen this a couple times before. I did see it in the theater when it first came out. So that was an interesting experience. It was me and a bunch of basically a bachelorette party going on. So, but this is a movie I actually like. I think that this is a movie that could have been really shallow and trashy if it was not handled right. It could have been like a 50 Shades of Grey kind of movie where it's just there to like, the women, hooting and hollering because it's seeing men stripping on stage. But I think because Steven Soderbergh directed this, I think that he has a good eye for it. I think that I love the way they drop you in right at the beginning. Like you see Matthew McConaughey doing his, speech at the beginning, kind of sets up the whole movie. Matthew McConaughey's charisma, his personality is perfect for this. You even get to hear him use his all right a couple times during the movie. So, you get to see him show that off. But then they just kind of drop you in this world. And I think like it's even kind of talked about kind of where this is, again, like I think what Scott was saying, it's a vibes movie that they kind of felt like they had to put a plot into. So they add the drugs and things like that, which, I do feel is kind of unnecessary, but I get that they feel they had to do something. So it wasn't just like hanging out backstage at the strip show. Yeah. And I think that the stripping scenes, they were, I think there was enough of them that, they knew what they were trying to show, but it didn't like, linger on it to be like, sensationalizing just for, like I said, just for a cheap film. I thought that it was very well done. Yeah, as far as the cast beginning to bottom, I Channing Tatum this year, I think it was, he did 21 Jump Street, I think the same year as this. And this is kind of the year I felt like he kind of turned his career around, because he'd done like Step Up and he'd done like Dear John. He'd done like these kind of movies like that where he's kind of like, oh, this some kind of pretty boy. They're trying to push this the next big thing. But then with, the comedy of 21 Jump Street, and then with this where he kind of showed he can do like a real kind of leading man thing. I think this is kind of where he kind of turned his career around, and I've been very interested in everything he's done ever since then. It's worked out real well. Alex Pettyfer, yeah, he was kind of douchey and smarmy, but I kind of feel like that's what the character was supposed to be. He has to be the guy who's like fucking everything up for everybody and getting everybody in trouble and things like that because he's just immature, and that worked for me. So yeah, I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, I do kind of want to like a couple things, because I think kind of Soderbergh, I think very subtly kind of throws in like kind of the cycles of this life. I think he does a very good job of doing that, like mostly through Pettifer's and McConaughey's character. Because I mean, you guys have mentioned the drugs. I think that there is something kind of interesting of like, no, this is kind of what somebody who's coming into this. This is what he's gonna feel like. Where he's gonna come into this, he's not really gonna feel like he hasn't really felt like any real success or anything in his life, and he's kind of finally got this thing like where he's got the whole world at his fingertips, and he feels fucking invincible. Which I feel like where the drugs comes in. I think he very smartly throws in like somebody like McConaughey, and like this is how somebody who we look at somebody who's just been in this too long. He's been in it too long, and he's probably never going to go away because he is addicted to this on-stage gratification. And I think whenever you kind of include Mike in that, I think Mike is this person like who he has felt, I think the things that he's done in the past, and he also kind of sees like the possible future that he has, and like how much he doesn't want to be one of these guys. He doesn't want to be one of these lifers. Like he just wants to do enough to eventually like go into something better. And I think that's the elements in this movie. I think I really like glom onto is how Mike feels like he is. And I don't want to say better than everybody, but he is the one who's looking for the out, and he doesn't really feel like anybody else in the at least of who he's hanging out with is looking for that. And I think all these like little like plot elements that I think are aside from okay, these guys like just having a good time. I think it all fits. Yeah, I think it all works to the greater plot.
I will say that I do like the romance element a lot too between him and Cody Horn's character. That is like the one thing that this movie has over the second one. I think is her being in it because she's not in the second one, and I thought that was disappointing actually because I like the sort of down to earth quality that she brings to that character.
I mean, I think there is a little bit to that too, because I mean, among all those elements, like there's also nobody else in his life that also takes Mike seriously. Everybody just kind of thinks like he's just kind of a fucking joke, and especially like Olivia Munn's character, who, I mean, a conversation happened with her and her fiance like after Mike left. Like hey, who was like this really good-looking guy that thought he was in a relationship with you? What's up with that? Also,
I actually liked Olivia Munn in this movie because this is I've always really liked her because I mean she gets kind of, you look at her in like X-Men or Predator or things like that, and you think she's just like some nothing actress. But if you've ever seen her like on Newsroom, because we're talking about Aaron Sorkin, she was phenomenal on that. I think given the right material, she can be a really good actress. Which this one wasn't quite that, but it kind of I thought she played the part well and was good in it. I did just also want to add, I think you guys are giving Kevin Nash a little bit too much credit. You're saying, oh, yeah, he's just this guy who doesn't give a fuck about the choreography. No, I think he's just a guy who couldn't do the choreography. It was kind of like watching him just in the background, just kind of like, ooh, that's.
I loved when he was supposed to have his first solo dance. It's like, oh, he's passed out in the back. I was like, that makes sense.
It looked like they were trying to hide it more by putting him in closer to the back, but like he still sticks out like a sore thumb.
Like you just have to like cross the stage as part of the choreography to kind of stomp on his way.
Kevin Nash played college football for the University of Tennessee, so he will always have a special place in my heart. For that reason, you will not hear me say any bad words against him.
Kevin Nash is great. It's just his knees are terrible.
Still kind of works. Just one last thing, and I think we'll probably end this thing off, give ratings. I did like Brian had kind of mentioned this is a big year for Channing Tatum, and I also kind of view this movie as one that's like it's maybe one of the most important movies, I think, at least in somebody's career, as far as Channing, because I think, yeah, he had 21 Jump Street kind of come out earlier this year, but I think if it weren't for Magic Mike, would Channing Tatum probably get like some of like these drama things that like he has going on? Would he probably pop up in stuff like Hail Caesar? Would he pop up in like in I think this other movie that he's got coming out later this year, like Blink Twice, like kind of these other like Logan Lucky, like it's
Another Soderbergh movie. Yeah.
yeah, like just like stuff that like I feel like Channing Tatum probably just could have flamed out in Hollywood in like 3 years, like if it weren't for this movie. It's one I think people bring up at least a lot for McConaughey is really important for McConaughey, but I think it's equally, I think if not more so, important for Channing Tatum. But
Yeah.
All right. If not, yeah, I'll just go first. Yeah, like I said, I love the hell out of this movie. I enjoy it every time I rewatch it, and I'm usually not honest about what I would say are my top movies, but there's no really way I can deny this one. This is Magic Mike is 100% a 5-star movie for me. I love it to bits. Let's go to Scott first.
4 stars. I mean, I still enjoy the heck out of it, but the second one's better. The second one is a 5-star movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is very good, but okay. Matt.
Yeah, like this one, I feel like rewatching this is definitely gonna go, but it's gonna be a 3.5 now. And like the second one's definitely a 4-star at least. So yeah. Okay. Thank you for bringing this into my life, Mark.
Brian.
I also give it 3.5.
All right, Dylan.
I think I'll give it 4 stars. Yeah, I quite liked it. Also, it was cool seeing Riley Keough in it. She's barely in it, but I was like, whoa, I did not know she's in it.
Dialogue? I don't even know if she speaks in this movie.
She has like maybe 1 or 2 lines.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And like the first time she shows up was like in a red light. He's like, is that her? Yeah.
But yeah, finish the thing off. Yeah, first one good. Second one seems to be better. You do not need to see the third one. Last Dance really sucks.
Oh wow!
Don't
I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely not as good as the first.
It kind of sucks.
If you're there for the hangout vibes, don't watch that one.
Yeah,
definitely not.
Yeah,
you get a Zoom call. That's the extent of what you get with the hangout vibes. But that does end off like our show. I think usually Cody will talk about what we got coming up later. I could not tell you what's coming up in the Sight and Sound stuff. I am not tied into that. I also cannot tell you what's coming up in the next round table. We have not set that one up yet. Probably do that pretty soon. Other than that, I don't think there's anything else. Everybody, have a good night, and I'll be here next time. I don't believe there's a sign off either. So be well.